Chapter 12. What Died Inside. Late autumn in New England has a smell to it. Damp leaves, wood smoke, something wet underfoot that makes your socks feel soggy even when they're not. It gets into your lungs, your bones, and your dreams. And when grief rides in on the back of that kind of cold, it doesn't ask politely. It just comes in and sits down, muddy boots and all. Lena stood at the front door of the house like someone being asked to return to a crime scene. The nurse had given her a folder, Postpartum After Loss, stamped in big purple letters like it was a goddamn spa brochure. The kind of thing that tells you to drink tea and take walks and journal your feelings. As if grief was something you could trick into behaving. As if it didn't know your name and your address and the exact time your baby's heart gave up the ghost, 3:13 a.m., printed on the paperwork like a legal declaration that the world had changed. Cal unlocked the door and stepped inside first. She didn't follow right away. He said something, probably "I'll get the bags" or "Do you want to lie down?" but it barely touched her. His voice had gone soft lately, like a radio on low in another room. Always there, but far away. She didn't blame him. Grief is a shapeshifter. For some people, it makes them loud. For Cal, it turned him into a spreadsheet with legs. The house was too quiet. Not in that peaceful Sunday morning way, either. This was a hush that felt like the house itself was holding its breath. Lena glanced down the hall. The nursery door was still shut. She'd shut it herself the night before the bleeding started. 2 nights before 3:13 a.m., back when everything was still maybe okay. That door stayed shut for the next 3 days. The thing about miscarriage is that it's a word people say too fast. Missed carriage, as if you'd left something on a bus or misplaced your keys. It doesn't sound like blood on tile or silence where there should have been a heartbeat. It doesn't sound like your own body betraying you, like a betrayal from inside. Cal tried. He really did. Coffee in the mornings, dinners microwaved and plated like little domestic rituals. But every conversation they tried to have collapsed into silence somewhere between "How are you feeling?" and "Do you want to talk about it?" She didn't. Not with him. Not with anyone. She started waking at 3:13 every morning. Not from a dream. Just awake, eyes open, body still. Like something had nudged her from the inside. At first she thought it was the grief, the brain's weird internal clock, looping back to the moment the world cracked. But on the 3rd night, it was different. She woke up and placed her hand on her stomach without thinking. And she felt it. A nudge, a ripple, a flutter. It was so faint she almost convinced herself it was digestion, or gas, or the leftover echo of what should have been. But it came again, and again. Night after night, at exactly 3:13 a.m., not a flutter anymore, a kick. She didn't tell Cal. What could she say? "Hey, hon, I know the baby's gone, but guess what? My body didn't get the memo." Instead, she Googled it. 1,000 horror stories on message boards, phantom kicks, they called them. Common after late miscarriages, muscle memory, they said. Nerve twitches, nothing to worry about, the body holding on to a rhythm it no longer needed. Doctors even had a name for it. Diminished fetal movement syndrome. Like it was a jazz song that had gone quiet instead of a death inside her belly. So she let it be. For a while. But the kicks got stronger. Harder. They came at other times now. When she was washing dishes, folding clothes. Once, when she was standing in line at the pharmacy, the force of it made her flinch and drop the bottle of Advil. It wasn't a flutter anymore. It felt angry. Like something inside her was pissed off. One night, a week after coming home, she took a bath. Lavender bubbles, soft music. That folder from the hospital had insisted baths were good for processing emotional transitions. Lena sank into the water, eyes closed. Let the warmth cradle her. Her body felt floaty and disconnected, like she could slip under and vanish, and it would be okay. Then, kick. Not a ripple, a jab, just under the rib cage. Enough to make her gasp and sit upright, water splashing over the edge. She stared at her belly, slick and pale and slightly rounded, not from pregnancy, not anymore. Just leftover softness. But right then, right there, she saw it. Movement, a ripple under the skin. Fast, violent, something turning over. Lena slapped her hand over it. "Stop," she whispered. Nothing. The water stilled. The next morning, she called her OB/GYN. The nurse on the line was chipper in that tight-lipped, hurry-up way medical staff get when they don't want to say the wrong thing. "Oh, sure, that's totally normal," she said. Phantom sensations can feel very real, even months after. It doesn't feel phantom, Lena said. It feels pissed. A pause. If there's pain or bleeding, come in. Otherwise, just try to rest. Your body's been through a trauma. Your body, Lena thought. Not you. That night she didn't sleep. She lay in bed, eyes wide, staring at the ceiling. Cal had taken to sleeping in the guest room, his idea, just so you have space to process. Lena hadn't argued. It was easier this way. Quieter. At 3:13 a.m. she didn't need to be woken. The kick came hard, so hard it made her gasp. She sat up, and then, clear as a whisper, she heard it. A voice. Inside her head, not from it. A pressure behind her eyes, like a thought that didn't belong to her. You let me die. Her breath caught. She pressed both hands to her stomach. Nothing moved. But the voice didn't leave. You could have saved me. You didn't. You gave up. No, she whispered. That's not. I wasn't a loss. I was a rejection. She scrambled out of bed, heart racing. Her reflection in the mirror looked wrong. Face pale, eyes ringed with shadow. She opened her robe, looked down at her stomach. Nothing there, no movement, just skin. And yet she felt it. Something coiled, waiting. Downstairs, Cal was already gone. Left early, probably. Couldn't face her in the mornings anymore. The coffee pot was empty. His laptop was gone. Only the sharp smell of toasted bread lingered. She sat at the table, hands folded, staring at nothing. The voice was quiet now, but the feeling remained, that she wasn't alone in her own body, that something had been left behind. Not the baby, something else. When the sun finally rose, bleeding gold through the kitchen blinds, Lena made a decision. She stood, walked down the hallway, and opened the nursery door. The smell hit her first, dust and forgotten dreams. Powder and plastic, the stale scent of somewhere meant for life that never arrived. She crossed to the crib. The mobile above it spun gently, stirred by the draft. Lena reached in and picked up the small stuffed elephant she'd bought at 12 weeks, back when everything was joy and promise and hope. She held it to her chest and felt it again. Kick. No, not a kick, a demand. The voice came again 2 nights later, not in a dream, not like grief whispering through the cracks of sleep. This was awake, wide-eyed and frozen beneath sweat-damp sheets, the room pitch dark, except for the green glow of the bedside clock. 3:13 a.m., a tickle behind her eyes, a pressure low in her belly. Then it spoke. You let me die. Lena didn't scream. She froze, not because she didn't want to scream, but because her breath had stopped in her throat like someone was pressing a hand against her trachea from the inside. The voice was small, but not soft, cold and needling, like frost inside a wound. She sat up slowly, hand on her stomach. Still, no movement this time, but the voice remained. You knew I was dying, you felt it, you let it happen. Lena shook her head. No, she said aloud. That's not true, I didn't. Liar. She bolted to the bathroom and flipped on the light, the kind that makes you look like a ghost in your own mirror. Her face had gone pale, blue rings under her eyes, mouth slack with panic. She lifted her shirt. Her belly was soft, flattish now, just some residual bloat and shame. But it felt full. Not foodful, not bloated, occupied. She reached into the medicine cabinet, digging past razors and expired Advil until she found a dusty box of prenatal vitamins. Took 2, swallowed them dry, like a peace offering. It didn't help. The voice just laughed. She didn't go back to bed. She sat at the kitchen table until sunrise, nursing a mug of cold coffee and listening to the walls. The silence in the house had weight now, as if something else was breathing in it. And here's where it started to get weird, because it knew things. The voice, the thing inside her. The next morning, she skipped breakfast and made it halfway up the stairs before it said, "Eat something." Your blood sugar is 63. She froze, one hand on the railing, then flutter, low in her gut. Not pain, not yet, just pressure. You're not real, she whispered, and yet you're listening. She ate a banana and half a protein bar. The voice quieted. Later that week, she sat on the edge of the tub, trying to get her head on straight, when it whispered again. Your heart is at 103 beats per minute. You're ovulating from the left. What do you want? She hissed. I want what you owe me. Then it said nothing for the rest of the day. She tried to fight back. First with yoga. She found a grief healing flow on YouTube, hosted by a woman named something like Satya Bliss, all hushed tones and long exhales. Lena lit candles, unrolled her mat, played ocean sounds. She made it 12 minutes before a muscle spasm in her lower back sent her face first into child's pose, breath caught in her throat, that voice laughing again. You think this is a ghost? A sadness? I am what's left. I am what you made. The next day she went to a sound bath class downtown. Stayed 20 minutes. The voice hummed along with the crystal bowls in a pitch that made her teeth ache. Then came the salt cleanse, the peppermint oil, the smudging. Finally, in the early hours of a sleepless Thursday, she typed into Google, "How to exercise yourself DIY Reddit." She followed the top thread to a blog post that looked like it had been coded in 1997. There were steps, there were Latin phrases, there was a list of things she needed: black salt, a mirror, a personal item from the haunting. She didn't have black salt, so she used table salt mixed with soot from the fireplace. She didn't have a crucifix either. But she did have her first sonogram photo still tucked in a drawer beside a onesie she hadn't had the guts to throw away. She made a circle. She chanted. She wept. And when it was over, she waited. But the voice didn't leave. It laughed again, low and cruel and hungry. You invited me. Cal stopped sleeping in the house by the end of the week. It wasn't official. He didn't announce it, but she noticed his duffel bag was gone and his phone charger wasn't by the bed. He'd been working late, crashing at the office, maybe at his brother's, maybe somewhere else. When he did come home, it was always in the morning, when she was barely awake and the sun made everything seem almost normal again. He kissed her forehead once, said, "I'm worried about you." She said, "So stay." He didn't. She told her sister on a Monday. They met at a diner halfway between their towns, a place they'd gone to as kids for grilled cheese and milkshakes. Emily had been the one to call every day, to text, to ask if Lena needed anything. Lena hadn't answered much, but she said yes to lunch. They sat in a booth by the window. Lena stirred her tea in slow, nervous circles. Emily watched her like a nurse watches a psych patient trying to bluff sanity. Finally, Lena said it. "There's something inside me." Emily blinked. "You mean the grief?" "No, I mean literally. Something left over from the pregnancy. A part of it stayed. It talks to me." Emily's face shifted, just slightly. Not shock, not horror, something softer. Pity, maybe. A well-practiced smile drawn tight. "It's not a ghost," Lena said. "I don't think it ever had a soul. I think it's just the part that got denied, rejected, and now it's trying to finish the job." Emily reached across the table and took her hand. It felt like touching someone who'd already decided to leave. "Sweetie, I think you need help." Lena nodded. "Yeah, I do, but not the kind you're thinking." Emily called Cal that night. Lena heard him on the phone. The words hospital, psych eval, and postpartum psychosis floated through the vents. The voice in her head purred. "They don't believe you, but I do." The kicks changed after that, not just stronger, violent. Sometimes they knocked the wind out of her. Once they made her drop to the floor in the middle of the kitchen, clutching her stomach like someone had stabbed her from the inside. She called her OB again. No answer. She drove to the clinic and sat in the parking lot for 2 hours. Then she went home. What could she say? That she was being attacked by a baby that didn't exist? She stopped answering texts, blocked Cal's number, put her phone on Do Not Disturb and unplugged the landline. Her world shrank down to the house, the nursery, the whispering voice and the increasingly angry kicks. It wanted things now. Demands, not just commentary. "Build me a cradle." She ignored it. "Build it soft. I don't like the dark." She stayed in bed. "You owe me a body." She cried until her throat hurt. "Make me a place to come back to." Lena stood, barefoot, dizzy and numb. She walked down the hall, opened the nursery, again. She started with the crib, took it apart, scrubbed it down with lemon oil and warm water, polished the rails. Then she repainted it, not pink, not blue, a pale pearlescent white that shimmered faintly in the low light. Next, she washed the linens, soft fleece sheets, tiny blankets. She didn't remember buying half of it. Some of it still had tags, but it all smelled clean now, safe, ready. She placed the stuffed elephant in the corner, fluffed the pillows, hung the mobile again. The kicks lessened, not gone, but calmer. That night the voice whispered, "Good girl." The next day she ordered a bassinet, then a white noise machine, then diapers, then formula. She didn't remember placing half the orders. Her Amazon history looked like a baby shower registry for someone who'd lost their mind. But it felt right. When the packages came, she didn't look the delivery guys in the eye. She kept her head down and stacked the boxes neatly in the living room. One by one, she unwrapped them. Set everything up, arranged, rearranged, waited. Sometimes she caught her reflection and didn't recognize it. There was a flicker, just a second, where her face looked like a mask, pale, slack, empty behind the eyes. Other times she swore she heard breathing behind her, even when she was alone. And once, just once, in the hallway mirror, she saw a small shape behind her, blurry, about the size of a toddler. Its reflection didn't move when she did. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. She knew it was watching, waiting, at 3:13 a.m. On a Tuesday, Lena stood barefoot in the nursery, holding the mobile in one hand. The kicks had returned, not hard this time, rhythmic, steady. Contractions, the voice whispered. She didn't ask what that meant. She just hung the mobile and turned it gently. It spun. The music played. Then she sat on the rocking chair and waited. Almost ready, it said. One more thing. What? A name. She hadn't picked one. They'd talked about it. Cal wanted something biblical. She wanted something gender-neutral, but they'd never agreed. Now it felt too late. Or maybe too early. She whispered the only thing that came to mind. Hope. The voice didn't answer, but the next kick was soft, gentle, like a thank you. By the second week of December, the days had gone full gray. Not snowy yet. New England always waits till you give up hope before it gets beautiful again, but that dull, dead gray that makes the inside of your skull feel damp. Lena stayed inside. Curtains closed, phones off, lights dim. The house felt softer now, warmer somehow, like it had curled in on itself, a mouse nesting in the wall. And she moved through it in a sort of dream, floating, careful, purposeful in the way you are when something is growing and you don't want to disturb it. She didn't remember buying the yarn, but there it was in a basket beside the chair, 6 balls of it in the shade of blue she'd once said she hated. Robin's egg, her mother used to call it. The kind of color you paint ceilings with in nurseries if you want the baby to think heaven is shallow and close. She knitted, poorly at first, then better. The muscle memory didn't feel like hers, but the hands worked just the same. She made booties, a hat with little ears, a blanket that grew row by row while something deep inside her cooed in time with each stitch. Sometimes the voice would whisper faster and her fingers would fly. Other times, softer, and she'd unravel hours of work, starting again. It was okay. She had time. All the time in the world. The first time the milk came, she was standing at the kitchen sink, rinsing a bottle she didn't remember opening. A wet warmth bloomed across her chest, slow at first, then soaking through the fabric. She looked down. Twin stains over her breasts, damp, yellowish, sweet-smelling like spoiled cream. She didn't panic, didn't cry, just pressed her palm over one breast and squeezed gently. It sprayed, not much, but enough to confirm it, enough to feel it. Her body knew, or at least something inside it knew. That night, she found an old nursing bra in the closet, still tagged, never worn. She put it on, then folded herself into the rocking chair with the blanket in her lap and hummed softly under her breath. The belly came back next. It didn't swell like it had before with the baby. No stretch marks, no tenderness. It felt different, lower, heavier. She stared at herself in the mirror every morning, noting the way her center of gravity shifted. How she moved slower now with care. How she'd started waddling just slightly and didn't mind at all. When she touched her stomach, it felt warm, firm, occupied. "You owe me a body," the voice said, closer now, louder, inside her chest instead of her ears. "I'm trying," she whispered. "No more trying," it snapped. "I'm taking yours." Cal came back around Christmas. He stood on the porch in the snowless cold, a duffel in one hand, a styrofoam cup of gas station coffee in the other. He looked thinner, tired. His voice cracked when he said her name. "Lena, baby, open the door." She peeked at him through the blinds. His eyes were wet, not frozen, real tears, maybe the first she'd seen from him since the hospital. He knocked again. "I just want to talk." She didn't answer. A minute passed, then 2. He tried the knob. It was locked. When he looked through the glass, his smile collapsed. "Oh my God," he breathed, because behind her, just visible in the gloom, were shelves lined with diapers, formula, pacifiers, dozens, more than she could ever use. The living room had become a storeroom, a shrine. "Lena," he said again, panic rising now, "you need help." "No," she whispered through the glass. "I'm doing what I should have done." He stepped back, hands raised like he was talking to a jumper. "Lena, I called Emily. We can take you somewhere safe. There's a place in Manchester. They specialize in this kind of—" She shut the curtain. Behind it, she heard him shout, "This isn't you." And maybe he was right. Maybe it wasn't her. But whoever it was, it felt more real now than the Lena who'd come home from the hospital. The Lena who cried into her pillow and shook in the bath and whispered apologies into the sheets. That Lena was empty. This one was full. She put a chair against the front door that night, just in case. Reality began to shift after that. At first, it was little things. A fork in the drawer she didn't remember washing. A lamp in the nursery moved 6 inches to the left. Then it got worse. She'd wake in bed and find her feet covered in dirt, her arms sore, the mobile above the crib spinning, even though the windows were shut and the air was still. One morning, she opened the fridge to find jars of baby food, homemade, labeled in her handwriting, carrot puree, mashed pears, creamed spinach. She didn't own a blender. She didn't like spinach. Then came the dreams, or what she thought were dreams. She'd be in the nursery, rocking, always rocking, and in her lap, wrapped in the robin's egg blanket, something moved. It wasn't crying, it didn't make a sound, but it watched her. Eyes too large, black as pitch, unblinking. She'd wake up with her arms cradled around nothing, humming lullabies she didn't know. One afternoon, she found the sonogram photo again, the one she thought she'd thrown away. It was in the crib, tucked beneath the elephant's arm like a gift. She picked it up, held it to the light, and her breath caught, because it was wrong. The fetus in the picture wasn't curled up, soft and indistinct. It was facing the camera, head too large, mouth open in a black O, tiny hands pressed against the inside of the womb like it had known, like it had seen the end coming, like it had been screaming. She dropped the photo. The voice was quiet that night, not absent, just quiet, like it was waiting. She started talking to it, out loud. At first, just questions. "Are you really mine? Did I kill you? What are you?" It never answered those, only repeated itself. One last push. "Almost ready. You were meant to bring me here." Eventually she stopped asking. Instead she read to it, sang to it, rubbed her belly in slow, rhythmic circles. She let the milk come when it wanted, changed the sheets in the crib every day, brushed the elephant's ears with her fingers until the fabric went thin, and always, always she rocked. Cal came once more, this time with a cop. She saw them through the peephole. The officer looked bored, young, one hand on his hip, the other rubbing his nose with a gloved finger. Cal looked pale, desperate. "Lena," he called. "Please, I know you're scared." She stayed silent. The cop knocked. "Ma'am, we're not here to hurt you. We just need to make sure everything's okay." She didn't move. After 10 minutes, they left, but she knew they'd be back. So that night, she moved everything into the basement, the crib, the bottles, the clothes, the rocking chair. She lit candles, hung blackout curtains over the windows, and waited. By New Year's Eve, she was gone. Not dead, not insane, exactly, just gone. The woman who'd walked out of the hospital had been peeled away, layer by layer, until all that was left was this husk full of purpose, this vessel, this mother, and the voice had grown. Now it echoed, not just in her head, but in the floorboards, the pipes, the tick of the clock, the drip of the sink. It breathed in the house's bones. "Almost ready," it whispered. "You've done well. Just one more push." And she believed it, because deep inside she felt it, something kicking. Not phantom, not imaginary, real, alive, and hungry. She woke to wetness, not sweat, not milk, not the gentle damp of a leaky body still grieving. This was different, hot, thick, red. It soaked the sheets beneath her thighs, dripped down her legs, pooled on the floorboards with a soft plop that made her stomach turn. Lena blinked up at the ceiling. She didn't move. She couldn't move. Because she knew, even before her hand reached down, that this wasn't labor. This wasn't birth. This was extraction. And whatever wanted out, it wasn't done yet. The voice was screaming now. No longer a whisper, no longer cold and distant. This was rage. A child's tantrum twisted through a meat grinder. "Let me out." Her stomach twitched under her hand. Not a kick, a ripple. Like something sliding beneath the skin. Not bones, not limbs. A mass. Writhing, warm, aware. She pushed herself up, blood smeared across her thighs like finger paint. The whole room tilted. Her vision went black for a moment, then flared back too bright. Every light bulb in the house seemed to hum, vibrating with a low urgent frequency like a swarm of flies behind the drywall. Lena staggered forward, hands outstretched. The walls pulsed. The floorboards felt soft, as if the house itself was breathing with her. Somewhere behind her, she heard the mobile spinning. The music slow, off-key. The bathroom. She made it to the sink and collapsed against the counter, sweat pouring down her neck, her mouth dry and cracked. In the mirror, her belly bulged unnaturally, lopsided, purple veins blooming beneath the surface. She looked 8 months pregnant again, but with something misshapen. Something coiled. Let me out. She locked the door, pulled open the medicine cabinet. Scissors, razor blades, a box cutter. She chose the scissors, the same pair she'd used to snip tags from onesies. Pink-handled, slightly sticky with something sweet from long ago. Her hands trembled as she lay back in the tub. Water still pooled from her last bath. The blood mingled with it now, swirled in lazy patterns. She spread a towel beneath her, took 3 deep breaths, closed her eyes, and began to cut. Not fast, not hard, gentle, like a mother would, like the C-section she never got. The scissors trembled in her hands as she slipped the tip beneath the skin of her belly. The pain was sharp, immediate, but distant, like it belonged to someone else. A single red line bloomed, then another, and beneath it the movement surged, like it sensed the opening, the exit. "Good girl," the voice purred, almost soft again. "Almost there." She sobbed once, not from pain, from relief, because this was it, the moment, the birth she had been promised. And somewhere through the blood and bile and sobbing music from the nursery mobile, she began to hum. "Rock-a-bye baby in the treetop." She didn't hear Cal break the window, didn't hear his boots on the stairs, didn't hear him screaming her name like it still meant something. By the time he got the door open, Lena was already fading. Her skin had gone paper white, her hands limp, her eyes glassy but smiling, just slightly. That distant, post-labor euphoria people talk about in books written by men. He skidded on the blood, fell to his knees beside the tub. "Jesus, Lena, Lena!" She didn't answer, because her arms were full, and Cal, God help him, looked. It was slick, small, twisting, not crying, wrapped in the robin's egg blanket like a present from hell. Its skin was the color of raw chicken, translucent, not baby soft but wet like a peeled fruit. Fingers too long. Eyes closed at first, then it opened them, and Cal froze, because those eyes, wide, lidless, too big for the face, were hers, Lena's. A perfect mirror, staring up through the steam and the blood and the reek of something not quite alive. The mouth opened, and the thing spoke, in a voice that was part Lena, part static, part something else entirely. "Now you're the empty one." The lights blew out, one by one. The last thing Cal saw was Lena's pale face, beaming with exhausted joy. The tub overflowing with red, and the thing, whatever it was, curling against her chest like it belonged there, like it had always belonged, like it had just come home. Cal sat in the hospital waiting room with his hands in his lap and blood beneath his fingernails. He didn't blink much, didn't speak unless spoken to. And when he did, it was in that slow, cautious way you use when describing a nightmare you haven't quite woken from. He told them what he saw. The tub. The blood. Lena, the thing. And they wrote it down. But not the way he said it. Words like psychotic break and shared delusion floated through the clinical air, along with no viable fetus, no signs of gestation, and patient presented with severe abdominal trauma but no uterine rupture. One nurse muttered to another that Lena had probably done it to herself, some gruesome manifestation of postpartum psychosis. She didn't think Cal heard. He did. They asked questions again and again. Was she taking anything? Did she have a history of mental illness? Had she ever harmed herself before? Cal answered, then stopped answering, because none of it mattered, because Lena was gone. They kept him overnight, ran blood work, checked for signs of drug use, of trauma, of shock. The psychologist asked him to describe it again. What he saw, what it said. He couldn't, not without sounding like he'd lost it too. So he told them what they wanted to hear. "I don't remember much." They nodded, jotted something down. Dissociative amnesia, probably. Another box checked. By morning, they discharged him with a pamphlet and a prescription. Grief counseling, coping with sudden loss. He didn't read it. The house was still when he returned, still and warm, like someone had turned the thermostat up too high. He stepped through the front door and immediately heard it. Music. Faint, high and tinny, a lullaby playing from the nursery. His heart stopped. He stepped slowly down the hall, breath shallow, footsteps careful. The nursery door was open. He hadn't left it open. Inside, the mobile spun, slowly, dreamily. The same four animals bobbing in soft rhythm: elephant, bear, rabbit, lamb. The crib was empty. Or maybe not. There was something in the shadows, just out of focus. A shape too small to see, too present to ignore. And then, a sound, a coo. Soft, content, alive. Cal took a step back, another. The hallway behind him felt longer now, the house deeper. The air thick and slow, the cooing faded and became a caught breath, a sharp inhale. Then a whisper, small, proud, full of hunger. Mama made me from what died inside. The crib creaked once, and Cal's footsteps could be heard fleeing from what was once his home and will always be his greatest regret.